Hey folks, I'm Jeff Hirsch, and I've got one more video for you to wrap up 2025. As the year comes to a close, I like to go back and see if I can figure out what sort of trends might exist in my shooting, what cameras or apertures or lenses or ISOs or resolutions did I tend to prefer over the course of the year. And there's this really cool free website that will do all of that analytics for you. It's called Lightroom Dashboard, and it was created by an Australian programmer by the name of Shane Wallace about 10 years ago. And it's something that I've been using at the end of every year to just run a statistical analysis on my Lightroom catalog, get some of that good information. Now, a year or two ago, I went to use the site and it wasn't working anymore, so I reached out to the developer and he couldn't have been nicer. And within a couple of weeks, he had repaired the site and put it back online, as I was able to use it again for my 2024 analytics. So when I'm talking about analytics, let's jump into the demo tab on his website here. You get things like an overview of your shot count. How many shots did you shoot at different times over the year? What lenses did you tend to prefer, and what apertures and focal lengths were you shooting at by the majority? You can see a graph of which cameras you used and which ISOs you used on that. And then the fourth tab will give you information about the files you were creating. Were they RAW? Were they JPEG? Were they 8-bit? Were they 16-bit? So this is a great way to figure out if maybe you need a faster lens or a longer lens, or what kind of ways you like to shoot in the year. So let me show you how you go about generating this for yourself. One thing I do want to point out here is that the creator makes it very clear that this is 100% free, there's no software, no uploads, and it's all done within your browser. So your data never leaves your computer. It's all going to be analyzed directly on your computer. So how do we get the data that this little web page needs? We're going to go into Lightroom. And you can do this for more than a single year. I think that the website supports up to 5 years worth of data at the time. But I'm just interested in the trends that I generated shooting in 2025. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my Lightroom catalog. I'm going to choose the entire 2025 from my folders, and then I'll select all the photos. I'll use a Command A or a Control A. This gives me all of the approximately 37,000 shots that I took in 2025. So the next thing I want to do is I want to export all of that catalog metadata. And I don't need the pictures themselves, I just need the catalog information. So I'm going to go up to the File menu here, and I'm going to say I want to export this as a catalog. I'm just going to put it on my desktop. We'll call this 2025 Lightroom data. And then I don't need to export the negatives. I don't need smart previews, and I don't need regular previews. I just need the catalog metadata. So I'm going to uncheck all of these boxes. This will also help keep that file a little bit smaller. So I'm going to go ahead and export my catalog here. And Lightroom will output all of that metadata as a single catalog file, and that's the file that I can feed to lightroomdashboard.com, the analytics website. Now, if you are doing something like 5 years worth of data, and the file that you generate gets a little too large for you to upload through a regular browser, there is a little utility on the website that will compress a larger catalog for you, making it easier to upload. I haven't found that necessary in the last couple of years, but then again, I've only been sending in a single year's worth of data. So this is finished now, and on my desktop, I have this 2025 Lightroom catalog. So we'll come back to the website here. You can either click the menu item, Analyze Catalog, or the button in the middle of the page here. And it's very simple. It just says drag and drop your Lightroom catalog file into the box below. So I'm going to grab my file here and drop it. And it says very clearly, please note your catalog is not uploaded to our server. The statistics are calculated in your browser and your data never leaves your computer. So now it's actually doing an analysis, and it's presented me with my data for the year. So I can see when I did a lot of shooting. The two big bumps you see here, this corresponds to a trip I ran to Scotland in May, and this corresponds to a trip that I ran in September to Vietnam. The other two bumps you see here probably correspond to work that I did for one of my major clients where I generated a lot of files. The overview is great. It tells me what my most used camera, lens, how many files, how many cameras, my favorite ISO, my favorite aperture, my favorite resolution. And then as I drill down through each of the subsections, I'll get more detailed information in the graphs. When I look at lenses, I can see that for the most part, I did a lot of shooting with a 24 to 240 lens, but that was closely followed by a 14 to 35 that I also shot a lot of. You can see here that my most popular aperture to shoot at was, surprisingly enough, f8. But you'll also see a lot of f11 and f4 shots on there. As far as focal length, I took a lot of pictures at 100 millimeter. Those are probably taken on my 100 millimeter macro. You'll see a lot that are at the wide end of my 14 millimeter lens. A lot of my interior real estate photography is done with that lens. And you'll see a pretty good bump here at the wide end of the 24 to 240 and at the zoom end of the 24 to 240. So this gives me a nice graph here of my top 20 focal lengths and apertures and a little pie chart showing me which of the lenses I used. If we switch over to the cameras tab, I can see that partway through the year I switched from primarily shooting with an R6 to an R5 Mark II, and that my favorite ISO to shoot at was ISO 400, followed by 200, followed by 100. Everything else kind of falls off from there. And then finally in the last tab, I can see here that primarily I shot RAW. About 91% of the pictures I took were RAW files. They were 16-bit files, and the majority of them were at the resolution of the R5 Mark II, followed by the R6 that I had been shooting with. So in one simple little upload here, I can get all of this really interesting information about what my preferred resolution, aperture, lens, camera body, and frequency of when I was shooting. The other cool thing about Lightroom Dashboard is if you really want to get granular with this information or track it over multiple years, there's actually a text report and you can export it out as like a CSV or an Excel spreadsheet and get the exact numbers for each focal length, and ISO and aperture and all that good stuff. So I thought that might be a fun little video to wrap up the year with. So that is lightroomdashboard.com. I will see you all in 2026. I'm looking forward to doing more of these videos and more classes and workshops and trips. Hope you all have a great holiday season.